Hey, what's up, guys? This is
What's up?
Joe,
Are
and
you
I'm
talking to me?
here. Yeah, I'm talking to everyone. I'm here with my dad. This is Thomas William Crow. How are you today?
I'm doing good. You doing all right?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We're about uh, 400, 500 miles apart right now. He's in
Yeah,
my hometown.
that's cool.
Um, so I'm doing this interview for ENT 3030 about your profession, which will also be my profession one day. Um, Start off easy though. Um, Tell me about yourself.
So my name is William Crow, and I go by Thomas William Crow. Born 1974. I'm 46 years old. Divorced. I have four kids, one in college, three still at home, and raised them full time by myself, and running a survey company.
A
So
lot.
yeah, I'm
Great.
a busy guy.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. You got a lot on your plate. Okay,
Always.
that's awesome. So, how did you get into surveying?
Well, about 1996 or so, I had a really good friend who used to help his uncle on the weekends with and his uncle was a TVA surveyor, and he kind of explained to me what he did. It still didn't make sense to me, but just the fact that he was outside all day and doing a lot of hiking and stuff like that, it just sounded really, really cool to me. Um, and so I always thought it'd be something I'd like. Then back in about 98, early 98, I had an opportunity through a family member to get a job at a survey company, and I took it, and I fell in love with it instantly. I loved working in the woods and carrying around and learning like all this high tech equipment, and you know, it just I thought it was super cool. I really enjoyed it, and I just kind of fell right in with it.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, I love being outside too. I wonder what so. When did you get licensed, and can you go into detail on some of the hardships of getting licensed and how it feels to now be licensed?
Getting licensed, I can honestly say that's one of the things in my life outside of my kids and my business that I'm most proud of because I worked my butt off. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Getting licensed professionally in particular was one of the hardest things as far as a career um, path or whatever. It's definitely the hardest thing I've ever done, and really, studied a lot. And I mean, I studied for almost 2 years. I had almost 40 hours just in my application between sample work and submitting samples of work and just making sure everything, getting references and all that. Um, it was a long, drawn out, not easy process, but it was one of those things that once I did make it through and kind of get over that hump, it really opened the floodgates of opportunity for me. And I love my job even more now. And I've been doing it 20 years. I've been doing this 20 years
Mhm.
and I still love my job.
That's awesome. What year did you get licensed?
Uh, I started in I started surveying in 97. I got licensed in 2011. I started the application process around 2009, so it took me a few tries to pass. Oh, well, actually, I passed the nationals first try, but the state, I got
Yeah.
a little hung up on the state part. It took me a couple of tries on the state part to get through it, but I
Yeah.
finally got through it, and it was yeah, it was
Yeah, that's definitely a
working.
exam. odd because there's so many different sections and they're all extremely difficult.
Yeah. Yes, they
So,
are.
so how did you start? How did you go about starting your business?
Uh, so it's been my dream for as long as I can remember to eventually, start some kind of company and work for myself, be self-employed. That's the American dream. And and I really something I've always wanted to do. And I had the opportunity back in 2016 to go out on my own, and I worked for an engineering firm at the time, and I left on really good terms. And yeah, it was great. So yeah, 2016 I started, and it's gone great ever since.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And it only goes up from here.
Yeah.
It's better. All right. So, in regards to the communication aspects of the surveying profession, what kind of documents and presentations can you expect to produce on the job, and what kind of audiences and for what purposes?
Well, it really depends on the job. If you're working on an as-built job, you're going to be producing an as-built map, but you're going to be using cut sheets and field book notes, level loops, and things like that that you can include in your report or whatever. If you're doing a boundary survey or a disputed boundary survey, you might have to produce some of your notes, some of your field notes, or even some of your raw data from for the court to analyze and look at, and see, how you came to some of your conclusions. Note taking is one of the biggest, and nowadays things are so technical and done so much with computers that I think field notes have really um, been neglected more than they should nowadays. But we try to keep good field notes, and you just never know when that's going to come back. I've got every field book I've had since I started my business, and you just never know when you're going to need those things. And yeah, it really just depends on the job and the circumstances as far as who the audience would be.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely really important to make sure you gear your response and presentation towards your audience. So, what type of global audiences can you expect to be in front of as a surveyor? I know that's kind of an odd question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a weird question, but um, I mean, I guess if the way I would interpret that question, I would think, there's contractors all over the world that are going to use surveyors and need the things that we can provide. There's legal um, property law purposes that are, where we might be doing things for a judge or a jury to present evidence in a case, a property law case or something. But there's municipalities all over the world. I mean, there's government, work. Um, so really, just sky's the limit as far as that goes, I think.
Yeah,
And again, it depends on the circumstances of as far as who the audience is. But there's lots of people that need the services that we can provide for lots of different reasons.
yeah. There's definitely a ton of different ways that a surveyor uh, can help out a bunch of other different professions. So how much of your work nowadays is transmitted electronically?
Well, I mean, honestly, just about all my business is done electronically. Now, whether that be in the form of a PDF that the client can print off and have a copy of a stamped signed drawing themselves, or whether that be a CAD file. I mean, pretty much since I've been employed, or since I've been in business since 2016, I've only had 2 clients that I've had to mail stuff back and forth with. Everything else since then is, electronically. That's how I, email my quotes, use email for my quotes, and then my invoicing and my, deliverables, all that is done through email now. So I'd say all of it.
Mhm. That's cool. Times are a changing, as they would say. So what are some of the differences that you see in working with like engineers and contractors and professionals that know what kind of work you do, and general clients that maybe don't know all of the work that goes into a project?
The biggest thing is, I mean, the biggest difference is, professionals know a little bit more about what they want and what they need. A lot of times the general public, someone's told them they need a survey, and they just contact a surveyor and say they need a survey. Well, a survey can mean, as you know, lots of different things. There's lots of different services that surveyors provide. So, but usually in those cases, I talk to the person and try to find out first, who told you need this? Why do you think you need it? What exactly do you need? And try to determine that, and then, kind of go from there. That's the biggest difference, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. People that work with you a lot more would know what goes into it. I understand that. So moving into kind of our last topic, the legal responsibilities of a surveyor. Can you give your opinion on, first just kind of define what the legal responsibilities of a surveyor is, and then kind of your opinion on them, and
I'm out. Shut the
I'm
window.
out.
You want to
I'll
start
edit
that
it out,
question
maybe.
over? We'll just edit that piece out.
Yeah, I'll edit it out or something.
Start that question over. Shut the window though.
Yeah, I need to shut the window.
That's your edit point, is where I burped. I just burped.
We were on a good roll.
Cut.
All right.
Action.
So, what are some of your thoughts on the legal responsibility of a surveyor? And can you first kind of define what those responsibilities are?
I mean, you can always look to the actual, you know, Tennessee code annotated law as far as what surveyors' responsibilities are. Ultimately, it's to the public, um, for the public well-being, in regard to property and how the property is measured and how it's, retraced on the ground from a deed. Um, that's our Ultimately, that's our legal responsibility, is to interpret the deed and retrace that deed on the ground. And that's your, you know, in terms of boundary surveying, that's your mandate as a surveyor, and do it the best of your ability, apply the legal principles best you can, and roll with it. And in terms of, like, there's other aspects when you're working with contractors or doing construction layout. where contract law and stuff might come into play, and what happens if you make a mistake, or legally, what are your legal responsibilities, in those situations. But um, yeah.
Mhm. That's a good answer. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the legal responsibilities. You kind of covered all the grounds there. So what are, as you were saying, you have kept all of the notebooks that you've ever had since you started
Mhm.
this.
Mhm. They're on a shelf
And
right
yeah,
over
and
there.
yes, and you obviously were just talking about the potential liability of being called in the court and having to present your case.
Mhm. I've never had to do that, by the way, which is,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't relish the thought of getting brought into court over something, but at the same time, I feel like it would be my duty, and I don't shy from it either. I think if you're applying the legal principles the way you should, and um, doing things, keeping notes, and doing things the right way, I mean, you ought to be able to back up what you put on paper.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when you get that license and you put that stamp on that map,
Mhm.
you're
That's
saying
your
it's
baby.
right.
That's your
You're saying
baby.
it's right on your name.
Hmm.
So, are there any other? I know you already kind of gave your main methods. Keeping it electronically and in your field notes. But do you have any other methods for keeping your notes?
I mean, again, it depends on the job. We do lot surveys, we do topo surveys, and um, we do layout surveys for construction. I mean, it depends on the job. Sometimes, um, you know, in surveying, you're doing one of two things. You're either taking what's on a piece of paper and laying it down on the ground, or you're taking what's on the ground and putting it on a piece of paper. And your notes are kind of the same way. If you're doing a layout, then you're making notes before you go in the field and writing everything down so that you know what point you're going to, and you're referencing. Well, when you're doing, you know, when you're doing a boundary survey or something, you're taking your notes as you go, because you're building something as you go. You know what I mean? And then you have your notes to kind of look over when you're done, and ready to process your data or whatever.
That's interesting. The different aspects of the types of jobs within surveying. So, what, in your opinion, is the importance of accuracy checks in surveying, and how often do you think they should be done?
Well, I mean, that depends on, again,
Yeah,
that's a very
depends.
general question
Yeah,
about something very critical.
yeah,
I think accuracy checks is the lifeblood of surveying.
yes,
You always want to check and make sure what you're doing is right. We do that in lots of ways. We do that, if you're using an instrument and a gun, you're doing a backside check. I mean, that's a way of checking yourself and make sure you don't have point numbers in wrong, or have a bad height in, or whatever. If you're calculating something, you're doing accuracy checks by calculating everything from one side to the other, and then maybe calculating it back, or subtracting out the difference or whatever. I mean, again, it depends on what you're doing. That's pretty broad question, but
mhm,
I think accuracy checks are very important. I mean, we are being paid to be right. We have to be right every time. Within the um, in regard to what we're doing. If it's construction layout, I mean, just being 6 inches off on something can be, a big deal. So, I mean, we're being paid to go out there and be right every time. Because if you're wrong, that one time you're wrong, it could, it could come back on you. Really, you just never know. So, yeah, you always want to check yourself.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think that it's a very important, the most important part
The most
of surveying.
is your accuracy.
Yeah, the most important part. Well, I think that about wraps up all my questions. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for sharing all of this lovely information about the
Hey,
profession.
can I do a shout out?
Yeah, do a shout out.
Okay.
Crowland Surveying.
Hey,
Crowland Survey.
shout out.
Shout out. You wearing it too? I'm not wearing mine.
I'm wearing mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Old logo.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Will or Dad. I'll see you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Have a good
All
one.
right.